A 68-year-old man, someone who had eaten the same breakfast every single morning for the better part of 2 decades, someone who considered himself careful about his health, someone whose doctor had never once expressed alarm, went in for a routine blood work appointment last spring. The numbers that came back stopped his doctor mid-sentence, not because they were catastrophic, but because they were dangerously close to a threshold that once crossed changes everything. If he had waited even one more year to get tested, catching it early enough to act on it through lifestyle alone would have been significantly harder. What his doctor told him next, about the very first meal of his day, is what he wished someone had told him years earlier. What he had been eating every single morning before that appointment, the foods he poured into a bowl, spread on toast, or drank in a glass without a second thought, is something most people over 60 do without hesitation every week. I am not sharing this to alarm you. I am sharing it because his story and what he learned may be more relevant to your daily life than you realize. What his doctor explained that morning, and what I am about to share with you, is information that everyone over 60 genuinely deserves to have. Stay with me through this entire video, because by the end, you will have a clear and practical understanding of exactly which breakfast foods are working against your blood sugar right now, and precisely what to do instead. According to the CDC, about 29.2% of people older than 65 have diabetes. But here is the number that is even more important than that one. Using standard diagnostic criteria, 1/3 of older adults with diabetes are entirely undiagnosed. They are going about their mornings, making their coffee, sitting down to the same breakfast they have eaten for years, and they have no idea. The man in the story was not unusual. He was not negligent. He was not unhealthy by any visible measure. He was simply part of a pattern so common it has become statistically predictable, and that pattern begins, more often than most people realize, with what happens in the first hour after waking up. Blood sugar levels are usually the highest when you wake up, a phenomenon known as the dawn phenomenon, caused by the release of hormones like cortisol, which naturally increase blood sugar levels in the morning. So, before you take your first bite of the day, your glucose is already elevated. And what you choose to eat in those early morning hours either helps your body manage that elevation or pushes it dramatically higher. Controlling glucose is critically important around breakfast because it sets the pace for the rest of your day. That is not a minor detail. That is the foundation of everything that follows: your energy, your mood, your organ function, and your long-term metabolic health. The man in the story had no idea that his morning routine was compounding a biological process that had been building quietly for years. And if you recognized anything in that description, the routine, the habits, the quiet assumption that things were fine, that recognition is worth paying attention to. Because what his doctor explained next about the physiology behind what was happening is something most people are never told. Until now, here is the medical reality beneath the surface, and it is something your doctor may not have had time to fully explain during a 10-minute appointment. As you grow older, your body's natural ability to process carbohydrates often decreases, leading to gradually higher glucose values over time. Older adults may experience more frequent and more pronounced blood sugar spikes because insulin production and secretion rates become less efficient when managing a large glucose load. This is not a personal failing. It is a biological shift that happens with age, and it is happening whether you feel it or not. Your insulin response actually becomes less efficient as you age. The rate of insulin production during the first hour after eating is often lower than it was in younger years. This delayed response means your body cannot utilize glucose for energy as effectively, leading to more dramatic glucose spikes. Now think about what that means in practical terms. The same bowl of cereal that your body handled reasonably well at 45 may be triggering a very different response at 65. The same glass of orange juice, the same piece of white toast, the same flavored yogurt. Your biology has changed, but your breakfast plate, for many people, has not. The prevalence of both type 2 diabetes and prediabetes increases with advancing age, with the most important contributing factors being a deficiency of insulin secretion that develops with age and growing insulin resistance caused by changes in body composition. And here's the part that makes breakfast so specifically critical: postprandial hyperglycemia, the spike in blood sugar that happens after eating, is a prominent characteristic of type 2 diabetes in older adults. In other words, it is not just fasting blood sugar that matters. It is what happens after every meal. And for most people, the first and largest spike of the day happens within the first 30 minutes of breakfast. The habit itself is completely normal, completely ordinary, something most people do without even thinking about it, which is exactly why it is so easy to miss, and exactly why what we cover next is so important to understand before that next morning meal. Asymptomatic hyperglycemia occurs in many people as they age and creates an insidious and progressive metabolic dysregulation that for many years increases the susceptibility to many age-related chronic diseases. The word asymptomatic is the one that matters most in that sentence. It means no obvious warning, no dramatic signal, no moment where your body clearly announces that something has shifted. It simply continues quietly in the background while you pour your cereal and drink your juice and move on with your morning. But here is why catching this early changes everything. Altering the trajectory of metabolic dysfunction by addressing blood glucose levels may not be possible once type 2 diabetes has manifested clinically, meaning the window for turning this around with food and lifestyle choices alone has a real closing point. The man in the story caught his results at the edge of that window. His doctor told him that another year of the same breakfast habits may have moved him across a line that diet and daily choices alone could no longer fully address. That is the early detection advantage. That is the window. And right now, as you watch this, that window is still open for you. The good news is that you can take steps to delay or prevent type 2 diabetes, which is the most common form of the disease to develop in older adults. But that good news depends entirely on timing. By eating well, you can prevent dramatic blood sugar fluctuations that can potentially lead to major complications. And the people who benefit most from that truth are not the ones who learned it after a diagnosis. They are the ones who learned it before. Right now, in this video, you are in the before. The advantage you have at this moment is that you are learning this before symptoms appear, before numbers become irreversible, and before breakfast becomes something your doctor is asking you to urgently reconsider. What that appointment revealed about his morning habits and what it means for yours is where this becomes truly important. Now, I want you to think carefully about this next part, because some of what I am about to describe may feel very familiar. If any of these signs have shown up in your life recently and you push them aside as just getting older, type the words "not anymore" in the comments, because that phrase is the beginning of something different. When blood sugar goes too low, you can feel fatigued, irritable, and unmotivated. When it goes too high, you can feel erratic, foggy, and scattered. When blood sugar is steady, you feel focused, productive, engaged, and alert. Most people over 60 who are experiencing irregular blood sugar spikes are not connecting those feelings to breakfast. They are attributing morning fatigue to poor sleep. They are attributing mid-morning brain fog to age. They are attributing that sudden energy crash an hour after eating to just not being as young as they used to be. While mildly elevated blood sugar levels may not cause noticeable symptoms, as they rise, you may feel tired, thirsty, or need to urinate more often. These are signs that are easy to normalize, easy to dismiss. And for older adults specifically, diabetes in elderly people is often diagnosed with delay due to atypical symptoms. And because postprandial hyperglycemia, the spike that happens after meals, can occur even when fasting glucose appears normal. That is the critical piece most people never hear. You can have a blood sugar number in the morning that looks perfectly acceptable and still be experiencing dangerous spikes every single day at the breakfast table. Recurring fatigue, more difficult wound healing, and general cognitive slowing are among the signs that can easily be attributed to aging alone, when they may actually reflect underlying metabolic changes. If you have been feeling slower after breakfast, if you reach for something sweet by mid-morning, if your energy dips sharply before lunch, these are not just normal parts of aging. These are your body communicating something, and the medical explanation for what is driving these patterns is something most people never get told until it is far later than it needed to be. So, what were the 7 breakfast foods that his doctor pointed to specifically? And more importantly, What do you do instead? The first category is sugary cereals. Many cereals are not ideal for blood sugar management because they are often full of carbohydrates and added sugar without a balance of protein or healthy fat. And the problem is compounded by portion sizes. There are plenty of cereals that appear to be healthy choices, but people have a tendency to go well over a single serving size, which means they are getting far more sugar than they realize, even with a so-called low-sugar option. The second food is fruit juice. Fruit juice can have as many carbohydrates as a can of soda. Even freshly squeezed juices will spike your blood sugar because they deliver the sugars from fruit without the fiber that would slow absorption. The third is flavored yogurt. While yogurt is a good source of protein in the morning, the added fruit and flavoring can pack an excess sweetness that will spike blood sugar. The fourth is white bread and refined toast. White bread has been stripped of all its fiber, vitamins, and minerals through processing. The fiber in whole grain bread helps your body digest it more slowly, specifically to avoid a blood sugar spike. The fifth is pancakes and waffles with syrup. A stack of white flour pancakes covered in syrup is a high-risk choice because all those refined carbohydrates and concentrated sugar will severely impact blood sugar levels. The sixth is processed breakfast bars. Many breakfast bars are packed with sugar, carbohydrates, and artificial flavors, marketed as convenient nutrition but functioning metabolically more like dessert. And the seventh is all fruit smoothies. All fruit smoothies often contain too much sugar and too many fruit servings first thing in the morning, with no protein or fat to slow the glucose spike that follows. The habit of reaching for these foods every morning is completely ordinary, which is exactly why it is so important to understand what changes the outcome. And what she changed in the months after that appointment and the results her doctor recorded is exactly what we cover next. The second layer of what changes the outcome goes deeper than simply swapping one food for another. It is about understanding how your body processes your morning meal and then engineering your breakfast around that biology deliberately. Protein and fiber act like natural brakes on digestion, slowing the rate at which carbohydrates are broken down into sugar. When you add eggs, nut butter, seeds, or mashed avocado to breakfast foods, glucose enters the bloodstream more gradually, helping to prevent sharp spikes and the crash that inevitably follows. That is not a diet tip. That is a physiological principle. Eggs are rich in protein and healthy fats with virtually no carbohydrates, so they slow digestion and keep blood sugar steady, which is why they are consistently recommended by dietitians as one of the most protective morning choices for people over 60. Oatmeal, when made with plain oats and consumed in moderation, alongside a protein, can be a sound option because even though it is high in carbohydrates, it is also high in fiber, which slows the digestion of those carbohydrates and keeps blood sugar more stable. The man in the story did not overhaul his entire life. He restructured his morning. He moved from sweetened cereal and juice to eggs, plain oats, and whole fruit eaten, not juiced. And within 3 months, his follow-up numbers reflected that shift in a way that surprised even his doctor. Exercise, particularly muscle strengthening or resistance activities, can have additional benefits on glucose uptake by skeletal muscle, meaning even a short morning walk after breakfast can meaningfully reduce the post-meal spike that would otherwise follow. Many people with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetic blood sugar patterns can manage their levels significantly with diet and exercise alone. And the people with the best outcomes in studies like these had one thing in common. They knew what to look for, and they acted before the window closed. That sustained approach, the one built not on restriction but on understanding, is what we bring together in the final part of this video. You are not the person in the story who almost missed it. You are the person who found out in time. Right now, at this moment, you have the same information that man received in a doctor's office after a near miss. You have it before the appointment, before the alarming number, before the conversation where a physician has to choose their words carefully. Everything you have learned in this video about the dawn phenomenon, about the way aging changes your insulin response, about the 7 breakfast foods that spike blood sugar fastest, about the protein and fiber principles that protect you, and about the narrow but still open window for making changes that stick. All of that is now part of how you move forward, not with fear, with clear and practical understanding. By eating well, you can prevent dramatic blood sugar fluctuations that can potentially lead to major complications. And you will also experience other benefits, including a lower risk of heart disease, stronger energy, and better overall function. I share stories like this one because they are real, because the people they represent are real, and because you are real and sitting wherever you are, watching this, and your health genuinely matters. Share this video with someone who might be where that man was before his appointment, before the finding, before they knew. You could be the reason they find out in time. Stay with us. We will keep bringing you what you